Welcome back to the sports page. We bring in now UT writer Don Norcross, who's been a part of the UT's coverage of the tragedy in Boston today. Boston Marathon bombs were detonated near the finish line, about 100 yards apart. Yep. Many runners near the finish. I think the latest count is 140 plus people injured, 17 of those critically, and 3 deaths. And a big part of your coverage today, Don, was tracking the many San Diegans that are in the race, as every year several are there. We have a very active running community. Don, what can you tell us?
Well, first of all, I think you have to put the Boston Marathon in perspective. Everyone hears the Boston Marathon, they know that it's really big. But how big is it? Okay, well, it's the oldest marathon in the world. This was the 117th running. Unlike a lot of races, you don't just sign up, pay your entry fee, and then show up. No. At Boston, you've got to qualify.
This and the Olympics, I believe, are the only ones.
I believe so. Yeah. I believe so. And as you said, San Diego, huge running community. Every year, more than 100 San Diegans go back to the Boston Marathon. And I've spent a lot of the day on the phone reaching some San Diegans who are back there. To the best that we know right now, there have been no San Diegans who were injured.
Okay. And just watching the footage, what struck me, and obviously we have to put all of this in perspective, Don. I know you talked to a lot of people. It'll be interesting, some of the stories that you heard today from San Diegans. But marathoning is a way of life. 26.2 miles, and you see the elation of these people, and then suddenly terror and confusion. And certainly you see some people getting injured by shrapnel, but that incredible contrast right there.
It's, it's horrific. There's no other way to say it. It's just devastating. My heart, all of our hearts just go out to the people, the volunteers, the spectators who were there. You've got to understand how big this is in New England.
Hundreds of thousands of people lining the course.
You've got 27,000 runners, hundreds of thousands of people lining the course. This is Patriots Day in New England. It's a holiday celebrating, the beginning of the Revolutionary War, and it's just a huge event in Boston. And then for this tragedy, it's just so sad. And from the runner's perspective, let's look at it from their perspective. Okay, they put in years and years of trying to get to this race. Okay. And then a lot of them, this was their first Boston Marathon. A lot of them didn't get to run down Boylston Street, which is where the race concludes. And so they're disappointed, but the people that I talk to, they have perspective, okay? And they know that, listen, this is unfortunate for us, but their hearts, their prayers go out to, obviously, the people who were hurt, all the volunteers. Sadly, one of the, people who died is an 8-year-old child. I mean, it's just horrific.
And some of the people you talked to, I saw that there was a woman who had just crossed the finish line, or she was picking up her medal, and then she heard the blast go off, and there was 18 or 19 people from the San Diego Track Club. So, I mean, it just sounds like people from San Diego were right around the area, or could have been more part of it if they had been a little slower, a little, it's just amazing how local that could have been for us.
Right. I talked to one gentleman who was about a mile away from the finish, but he was on the phone with a woman who was just blocks, from when the bombs were detonated. And he's talking to her, and then all of a sudden in the background, he hears the woman's husband screaming, "I think it's a bomb, I think it's a bomb." And needless to say, that telephone conversation ended, very abruptly. I'm really close to the San Diego running community because I covered endurance sports. Really, that was the main thing that I covered for about 10 years. And I got to know these people. I trained for a marathon. I, have a feeling for what they go through. And here I am. I'm 3,000 miles away. And I was emotional and I was touched, and then talking to these people and hearing it in their voices, it's just a sad, sad day.
Just like you heard stories of near misses, 9/11. We don't know what the cause of this attack was or what the genesis was. But you spoke to the son of a woman who had finished, I believe, her second Boston Marathon. She shaved 14 minutes off her time from last year, and she had finished the race maybe 20 minutes before the blast. If she hadn't have been faster, I mean, if that is really, really hard to even imagine.
Yeah, she's well, appreciative of that training, I'd say. But one thing that we've got to keep in mind, you look at marathon runners, and they don't look imposing. I mean, let's be honest, okay? They're kind of skinny, okay? Most of them, okay? But these are gritty people. They're tough. It's not easy getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and even in San Diego with this nice weather, I mean, it is still a little bit chilly sometimes. But the bottom line, the mileage that they put in, the injuries that they put up with. And I talked with arguably the most well-known running coach in San Diego County. His name is Kevin McCary, a former 2-hour, 14-minute marathoner in his day. That's incredibly fast if you need some understanding. And he put things in perspective too, in terms of talking about the grit that marathoners run, and I think really the grit that Americans have too. Here's what he had to say. What the marathoners are feeling is relief that their family members and friends are okay. The only thing that they feel is sadness for the people that were in the blast, but they're not going to be afraid to go back. If the cowards were trying to put fear into the Boston Marathon, they picked the wrong group.
Yeah. It's going to be incredible to see how Boston rebounds from this, and also how just the people, Americans, international, how anybody running a marathon or running a race comes back and is resilient from this. And also, like you said, this is a magical day for Boston. This is something that, families come out, they watch together, they share. This is a bonding thing for them. So I think, like you said in that quote, I think this is going to continue to bring them together next year in the heart of this tragedy. We didn't even get around to talk to what we're going to see in San Diego in a few weeks, or in about 2 months from now, which is the Rock and Roll Marathon, and how they're going to deal with,
we think about
questioning that, and how they're going to be able to keep that safe.
Appreciate you joining us.
Anytime, anytime.
We'll be tracking this, obviously, like you said, with the Rock and Roll Marathon coming up June 2nd. We'll see what the precautions they're going to take. What can they do?
You can read Don's stories on UT San Diego, and we appreciate your time, Don.
You bet, my
Thanks.
pleasure.
We'll be talking Padres when we come back.